So you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that was you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody. So we're live early because apparently at some point I hit the actual go live button on YouTube or something, and I didn't notice that. And then suddenly Bent was like, "Hey man, you're live," and what? So we're starting early, which is fine because we've got a fair bit of extra stuff to go through, and Chesh is getting ready with stuff like headphones or something. I don't know, but we are here to read a tract and a comic book, because we have a Jack Chick comic book, but it's like a full-length comic book. It's not like one of his 10-page, 2 panels per page tracts, right? This is a 20-something page, more often 4 panels thing. So first up we have Have You Been Brainwashed? Our first one. And that is by Dwayne T. Gish, whom I didn't know had authored any Bible tract type things. But it was brought to my attention in a video that I'm actually responding to currently on the channel. So if you're a member or a patron, check out Early Access, because the first video in that series just went up 2 days ago, or maybe 3 days ago. And the next video is going to be uploaded, or it's already uploaded, and it's already compiled and whatnot on YouTube, but it's not going to send out the link to supporters until after this show. So let's start with Vishanti. We'll go to Bent, and then if Chesh is back, we'll bring Chesh in. So Vishanti, how are you? Sorry, Vishanti, how are you?
Good.
All right. Bent, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm glad I can hear you now.
Yeah. Well, the good news is everyone else could hear me the whole time.
I could tell that everyone else could hear me.
Yeah, so I have multiple ways to mute myself into different things. All right. And so when Chesh gets back here finally.
Hi.
Hi, Chesh.
I lost my dog.
Well, I feel like I just...
It's okay. I found him.
Oh, okay, good. So, Chesh, how are you?
A little bit tired, but I'm okay other than that.
Okay.
I'm just doing laundry.
All right. Well, this is early for everyone, earlier than I said it would be. So sorry about that to everyone who's on the panel. But you know what? That's okay. As I said, we're going to start off with "Have You Been Brainwashed" by Dwayne T. Gish, Ph.D. Make sure that's not PhD. It's Ph.D. Right? Separate initialisms there.
Naturally.
So normally what we do for these is we try to pick characters to go through, and that will work for the first few bits of this, but after that I think we're just gonna have to switch off based on each page or something, because after the first couple pages it's all just Dwayne Gish as the person who's speaking in this comic, and I don't want whoever picks to be Dwayne Gish to have to do the entire comic. So does that sound fine that we'll do a page each and then we'll cycle through?
Should we have the chat vote if we're brainwashed or not at the end? Or
we'll just set that up right now as a poll. So let's see. Have you been brainwashed? Yes, no, and then we'll say all hail Dr. Gish. Those would be our options.
I love turtles. I'm a little bit disappointed that we don't know what we're brainwashed by yet.
Well, I'm sure it'll end up being evolution because it's Dwayne T. Gish, and that's the only thing he ever talked about.
What if we're brainwashed by other things?
Well, I mean, I still think it counts as brainwashed, but it might not count for Dr. Gish here. Who, by the way, is an actual PhD, right? He is actually Dr. Gish. His PhD was, I believe, in hydrodynamics, which of course relates to human evolution intimately by means of something. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Magic.
Oh.
All right, let's go. Who wants to be our narrator?
I will be the narrator.
Okay.
Ha 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 ha. Oh wait, I've got Primal Man open. Wait, where's the other one? Wait, I failed.
Oh my goodness. This is sorry, guys. This is the worst.
There we go. Okay, I got it. This happening took place on the campus of the University of California at Davis.
Hey, have you read this article of the Aggie? Have you been brainwashed on evolution?
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard of a PhD scientist taking that point of view on evolution.
Man, I wonder if he has any evidence to back up his statements. Listen to what this reporter says. Why have I been on this campus for 4 years and never had the opportunity to hear this kind of evidence? I challenge each student to hear the other side of the issue. Don't allow yourself to be brainwashed. Hear Dr. Gish present the other side of the creation/evolution controversy tonight at the campus lecture hall.
Of course.
That's not a report. That's an ad.
Yeah, that's definitely an ad. Also, there isn't an other side. It's sort of like the other side in the flat Earth debate. There isn't a real debate. All there is at most horribly deluded people and for entertainment purposes only, quote unquote, debates.
Yeah,
I mean,
science and then pseudoscience.
There's also certainly like some nuance in some of like the smaller, less known stuff within the scientific community, but that's not what you're gonna find here.
Yeah. All right, so I think I'm the woman with the bun. So Vishanti, you want to be the one with the nice little 70s swoop there?
Okay. The one holding the books,
Yes.
right? Okay. Let's go and hear him. It should be interesting.
I think it would be a good idea. I've really been confused on the subject of evolution.
You know what? I know what you mean. We've been taught that we evolved from lower life, which evolved from dead matter. It just doesn't add up. I think you mean inanimate matter.
Because no one taught you that.
Yeah. There's a difference between dead and inanimate. Dead means formerly living. Inanimate means never living. It's inanimate. Anyway, I think we're back to Vishanti.
Let's pass the word around to meet at the lecture hall tonight and see if he has any solid evidence to back up his statement.
So I love that this is Dwayne Gish's like internal picture of what it's like to be a college student, where you just go around telling each other about creationist lectures at the lecture hall. Like, no.
It's in the newspaper, guys.
I don't know. He has a PhD. It means he's at least been there. It's more than I can say.
That's true.
I dropped out twice. I don't count.
But you are up next.
Later that evening.
I'm surely glad you'll be willing to speak tonight, Dr. Gish, and this is definitely how people talk. I only hope that we have a decent turnout. You just never know with how the students will respond. Wow.
Comics with problems number 591.
Oh, yeah.
http://www.ep.tc/problems. Anti-evolution comic book. Have you been? Ellipses. Brainwashed. 1974 religious text. Tract. Sorry.
Wow, we've never had a turnout like this before. And now I would like to introduce you to our guest speaker of the evening, Dr. Dwayne T. Gish, *, see inside back of cover for a brief resume of Dr. Dwayne T. Gish.
Okay.
Why does he look like Kent Hovind?
Right?
With dark hair.
Oh my god.
They both look like
kinda
Temple.
It kind of does. Although, you know what, though? Kent Hovind usually portrays himself as blonde in his comic books. Or his little...
I would say that's blonde.
Can we
That's
go
just
with
the shading. It looks a little weird.
Oh,
the
yeah.
announcer? Yeah, the announcer is blonde. And yeah, so we got Kent Hovind and Dr. Gish, and Kent Hovind is praising somebody else for once.
Well, the thing is...
Very 0 out of 10, unrealistic.
My favorite thing about this, right, is it's Dwayne Gish writing a comic book about himself where he's the main speaker, in which... Oh my goodness, it's almost time to go on. My alarm went off telling me it's almost time to go live. So it's Dwayne Gish writing his own comic book about himself, in which he has like record-breaking crowds at a college, and it's like, my goodness, dude, pull your head out of your own ass and have a little bit of self-awareness, just a little bit.
There's
Challenge
nothing
impossible.
Like, yeah, right. There's nothing like an adult wanting to be like popular with kids these days.
Right.
It's like Michael Scott.
How do you do, fellow kids?
All right, so let's I think what we'll do is...
Who's gonna be Dwayne Gish?
Well, so for this, we can't really have one person be Dwayne Gish, because he's basically the only speaker from this point on. So I think what we'll do is we'll start rotating. So we'll start with Vishanti on this page, and then the next page we can go to Bent, and then Chesh. And Chesh, if you want, you can read the narrator
I'll
bit.
still do the end. Yeah, I'll still do that. Is the so are we basically what we're at now is we're reading his presentation that he did that's probably on video somewhere in comic book form?
Basically, except that it's, heavily modified according to
Right.
Ish himself. So Vishanti, you want to take over as...
So is the heavily modified the big crowd part?
That's at least part of it, right?
Okay. Thank you. I would first like to say how delighted I am for the opportunity to speak here on the Davis campus this evening.
The following message by Dr. Gish has been modified and greatly condensed for this publication.
As a scientist,
Hedging
I
your bet.
believe we must examine all the evidence and facts before we can come to any conclusion on any given subject. I'm asking only one thing of this audience, that you examine the facts thoroughly and without prejudice.
The refusal by science teachers to consider creation as a possible explanation for the origin of all things is unwarranted and undesirable. For some reason, the student is being indoctrinated without being given a complete presentation of the evidence. This situation could be remedied by taking a closer look at both creation and evolution. First, let's examine the claims of each.
The evolutionist states that all life gradually evolved from a single cell, which had evolved from dead matter. Creationists believe that life and our existence came by the acts of a creator.
So there's a few things. One is first, this tree of life is weird and confusing because it looks like it has plants on multiple places. But you know what? It probably wasn't drawn to be the most exacting. It also seems to indicate that pterosaurs and birds are more closely related to humans than either one is to horses, which is a weird kind of position to take.
I don't know. That just looks like lines on paper.
It also looks like horses and whales. Horses descend from a whale-like thing, which
I think that's supposed to be a primitive bony fish like Dunkleosteus.
I think you're being too generous, but okay.
Look, I am being generous here, but also this thing also seems to have kangaroos and turtles as sisters. So who knows what's happening on this?
I understand now. You see, the kangaroos rode on the backs of the turtles.
That's
to
a
get to Australia.
kangaroo?
What else is it?
I thought it was one of those uprighty dinosaurs with the bills.
Oh, and this is just because it's from
The
1974.
one with the
Yeah.
All
bony
right,
head,
yeah, that could make sense. All right, that's
what's the name of it? It's
Yeah,
that's not the Deinonychus, right? The one with the
no.
bony
This
head.
would probably be some kind of iguanodon if it's supposed to be a dinosaur.
Oh, Guanodon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so if that's
With the
you
thumbs.
can say that's an iguanodon, and then there's a turtle under there, but then it still has clearly pterosaurs as closer to horses than they
Yeah.
are to iguanodons or turtles, which is just no.
I don't know. I'm
Also-
happy about this. What is that? A horned beetle? Like a Hercules beetle all up in the corner all by itself.
Poor guy.
I'm also looking, and is that there's the circle that indicates the start, and then on the left side is that jellyfish, and then a fungus on the right side. What is
So
going on
I
here? Is that a
think-
fern?
So I think we start with this single stop, which is supposed to be from a single cell, which
Dead matter.
okay, what if it said from a population of single-celled organisms? That could be right, but it's not like Luca, the last universal common ancestor, was a single particular cell that you could find and look at it with a microscope. It would have been a population of such cells. And then the dead matter, as we already went over, no, inanimate. But then on the right, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say that maybe that's a bacterium or something, right? But then I think after that, the first thing that branches off is a spinoflagellate, which probably shouldn't be it. And then I don't know what's on the right. Is it a clump of
Also,
moss?
I'm looking, and right above where his hand is, you've got crabs, scorpions, and spiders, and then maybe a horseshoe crab to the left of the regular crab.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
I'm
look
seeing
at the
fishing
crab
lures,
goes. Look
apple
at where
pies.
Look at where the crab goes all the way down, though. It's not beside the scorpion. It's way down where it starts over here all by itself.
This whole thing, yeah, I think this is just somebody drawing their really bad rendition. They didn't
Also,
try to make
Hold
it
on, what's
accurate at all.
directly above the tip of his are vertebrates in this?
Oh yeah,
I-
it probably is.
Looks like a cooked turkey to me. I can't really tell.
I mean, to me, this one of these looks like Like maybe the top of a Portuguese man of war sitting on top of a blob. I don't know.
I don't know. It looks like a dick.
Okay, fair enough.
It's one of those ink blots.
It's like a weirdly drawn
I think
frog.
I'm up.
I want one of these. I want one of these as like a stamp on my.
The evidence the evolutionist needs to establish his claims is fossils showing a gradual step-by-step development of lower animal life into more and more complex forms.
Look at this tilted lizard, and then just out of nowhere it gets bird wings. Like it's still got lizard feet.
Oh,
And then it's just a lizard head, but with bird wings.
When
Like,
I finish this
what?
page, we'll get into it.
Commander.
And this should be evident by the presence in fossil record of many transitional forms. The evidence needed to support creation is fossils showing complex life appearing suddenly, with no fossil evidence of lower animals developing into new and complex forms of life. So let's talk about this sequence, right? So we have what actually just at the first looks kind of like an ontological thing, where it's like, is that just a developing embryo? Because we actually do have fossil embryos. I don't know if you guys know. That's a thing. The Dushantu Shale is a Precambrian fossil formation, or fossil-bearing formation, that includes animal embryos. So
the Vishanti Shale.
Well, Dushantu, but sure, we'll call it the Vishanti Shale for now.
Can I also point out? I just want to put a really big header under this, and it's just 1974.
Well, yeah. So at 1974, we probably didn't have a lot of the stuff that we're looking at. And of course, what we actually have doesn't look much like this caricature. But still, when you look at like, okay, do we have pre-vertebrate fish-like things? Well, yeah, we've got things like Hycoichthyes and whatnot.
But hear me out, though. This is an argument made at the time of 1974 with 1974 information available.
Oh, sure.
And people are still trying to make this argument now.
Right.
Well, I mean, science stopped in like 1962, so...
I mean, women didn't even exist until like 1985.
Oh, and you know what?
And they emerged fully formed with giant shoulders.
Yeah. Let's see.
You can see that with the fossilized shoulder pads from 90s clothes that we find in ancient thrift stores.
But basically, this entire series has actually been filled in with things like, we have, like, things like I said, like Hycoichthyes, which are like basically pre-vertebrate fish. We have more advanced agnathan fish with bony armor. We have the first osteichthyan fish with jaws. We get into things like Acanthostega or Tiktaalik going into the fish with legs area. We have early para-reptiles that are transitioning from primitive amphibian-like tetrapods into amniotes. Then we have some of our first sauropsids back in like the Carboniferous, getting into the reptile side. We have early like archosauromorphs like Euparkeria getting into the archosaur side. We have early ornithodyrran or dinosauromorphs like Lagurpiton. We actually have early dinosaurs like Herrerasaurus. When we get into Silurosauria, we have things like Scleromochlus and not Scleromochlus, I'm sorry, that's a pterosaur relative. We have things like Scurriomymus, that's what I was thinking of, squirrel mimic. Then getting into things like Microraptor and eventually into actual birds. We have the entire thing that he's asking for, and sure, in 1974 we didn't. But guess what? This is Dwayne Gish making a prediction. If evolution is true, we should get all these transitional fossils, and if creation is true, we shouldn't. Well, guess which one happened? Yeah, we got the transitional fossils. We have the whole sequence now. Now, sure, you can say, oh, but there's a gap between, you know, like, Tiktaalik and Acanthostega. Like, okay, great. That's just the Dr. Banjo argument.
Ah, but I have you now!
Right. You know, we'll just play the Futurama clip. Because you know what? I have it handy.
That's literally what's happening.
We'll just play the Futurama clip.
It's been pointed out in the chat that the chat on screen is probably a little too wide. It's covering up part of the comic. And if you could shrink that down, an intrigued feline would be very happy.
The NB doesn't like that I tend to get glazed eyes when you start like going into like super taxonomic stuff.
I just start squinting because it hurts.
Well, it's because I'm not fluent enough in the scientific names for a lot of these animals to know immediately what he's referencing. So to me, I'm just hearing like words that don't have any meaning. Okay. Now let's look at the actual fossil evidence. Nothing in the Devonian, nothing in the Silurian, nothing in the Intermission. Okay. The earliest fossils to be found are in the Cambrian rock strata. Sounds fake. And the billions of fossils found there are all of highly complex forms of life. I love this is like Precambrian, void of fossils. Earth's crust, void of fossils. Where are we digging? Where are we digging fossils out the mantle? Like what?
What?
Fossils are found in the crust.
What does this guy think fossils are made out of?
Oh my god, this is
Okay.
liquid hot magma.
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 With no evidence of these complex forms gradually developing from a simple form of life. According to evolutionists, it would have been required 1.5 billion years for these animals to have evolved.
I'm reading this off the StreamYard screen, so...
Yeah, I moved it, don't worry, sorry.
I'm not reading it off my anything, so... Okay.
1.5 billion years of missing fossil evidence, and then there we go. Not a single indisputable multicellular fossil has been found anywhere in the world in a rock supposedly older than the Cambrian rock.
That might have been true in 74. It's definitely not true now. We have the whole entire Ediacaran biota full of multicellular animals and multicellular maybe animals.
Are you saying that Dr. PhD Dwayne Gish is wrong?
Yes.
Billions of highly complex animals, ellipses, trilobites, brachiopods, corals, worms, jellyfish, etc., ellipses, just suddenly appear with no signs of gradual development from lower forms.
Again, there's an entire period of the history of life before the Cambrian. Now, I don't remember when the first Ediacaran fossils were found. I don't know if it was before 1974 or during 1974. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt to say that at the time it was still missing. But just like with the Dr. Banjo clip, which I unfortunately don't actually have handy because I don't know where I put it. And, you know, OBS references a direct file path. So if I move the file, well, that breaks the link. So if you guys haven't seen the Dr. Banjo clip, right? Dr. Banjo, the creationist orangutan, is talking to Professor Farnsworth, the evolutionist human Futurama, say. He's like, I've got you now. Where is this link between so-called primitive man and apes? So, you know, Professor Farnsworth says, we found it. It's Homo habilis. And Dr. Banjo just says, I have you now. For where is the link between this Homo habilis and apes? And then...
we found it. It's called Homo erectus. Right. But checkmate. Where is the link between this Homo erectus and... apes?
Right, and then finally it gets all the way down to like, but where is the link between this Darwinius macelli and these primitive apes? And then Professor Farnsworth says, well, we haven't found that one link, but just because we haven't found it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. At which point, you know, Dr. Banjo just says, things don't exist just because you believe in them. Thus saith the almighty creature in the sky.
I just like that it's a
argument.
total analogy for arguing with a monkey.
The thing is, but it's the same thing, right? Like, at no point is a creationist going to be happy that you have the sufficient links. But the fact is, like Dwayne Gish said earlier, the prediction from special creation is that there shouldn't be any transitional form. And nowadays, you get people who are post hoc trying to import the idea that transitional forms should be expected in creationism. But they're only doing that in light of the fact that they verifiably exist contra the actual predictions of down-to-earth creationism before the evidence came in.
When did the argument evolve into everything is a transitional fossil?
So that's a thing that you hear a lot, and there's a lot of truth to it because things are always evolving until they go extinct. I don't know when that first started becoming a common thing to hear, though. I actually don't think it's super rhetorically impressive. It's a fun thing to know that it's true. I don't think it really works very well in terms of arguing for evolution against like creationists or anything.
Also, ellipses. Throughout the remainder of the fossil record, there is a remarkable absence of the many transitional forms demanded by the theory of evolution. There are hundreds of thousands of missing links between invertebrate and vertebrae. The sea squirt is presumed to be an ancestor of the vertebrae. Shell, modern fish. According to evolutionists, it would have taken 100 million years for a fish to have evolved from an invertebrate.
Citation needed on that one there, buddy. Who said that? When did they say it? Where did they say it?
But there is absolutely no fossil evidence showing that this took place.
I'm digging those fish lips, though.
Yeah, those are very, very supple fish lips right there.
Also, I can't stop laughing at sea squirt. Yes, I'm 12.
So there's a few. So sea squirts, or tunicates, as they're also called, are also chordates.
That is not a better name.
Sometimes some are also called sea salps. I don't know if that helps.
I'll take that.
So this is a group of chordates that have a notochord as larvae, and then they turn into this weird sort of sac with a stomach.
But when will my noodles turn into a roasted chicken?
Probably never. But here's the thing: we do have transitions, not just in the fossil record, because we have that, but even right now, between vertebrates and invertebrates. Y'all ever hear of sea lancelet? These little fish-like things that don't actually have a backbone. They're not vertebrates, but they do have a notochord. They're shaped broadly like a fish. They have a postanal tail, and they have weird little tendrils at their mouth that they use to pull things out of the water and into their gut. And then...
So they're spineless.
Yeah, they literally don't have a spine. And then you get to hagfish, which are a little bit closer to being a vertebrate. They don't really have a backbone. They don't have any actual calcified skeleton. They have teeth, and they have an actual nostril, which is a thing that sea lancelets don't have. You're getting closer to vertebrates. Then you have things like lampreys, where they're basically vertebrates, but they still don't actually have a calcified skeleton. But, you know, they have a more advanced eye, like an actual vertebrate eye. And they have gills more like actual vertebrate gills than you get with the hagfish. And they also have two nostrils instead of one central nostril. And then finally you get to things that actually are vertebrates like sharks and bony fish. So we don't even need the fossils. We have the currently existing transitional forms that just didn't ever go extinct. So yeah, all of this works just fine. Roll down a page. I think is it back to me? All right.
I think so.
Again.
Coelacanth!
Yes. Actually, I think that's more of a euthanopteron kind of fish.
Yeah, I don't know if the lobes are pronounced enough, but it's close.
Again,
I don't know if the people doing the art for this knew enough to do that.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, the people doing this art, which basically is Gish, by the way.
You know what? Good job, dude. This is not bad.
Yeah. Again, the evolutionists claim that it took perhaps 50 million years for a fish to evolve into an amphibian. I mean, I would say citation needed again, although it's not a crazy amount. It's not a crazy estimate. But again, there are no transitional forms. For example, not a single fossil part with fins, part feet, has ever been found. Tiktaalik. What's a canthostega again? Yeah, it's exactly what you're asking for, dude. Now, granted...
Well, listen. Waterworld is a movie. Kevin Costner just proved all this already. Whatever, man.
Kevin Costner, evolving gills in a single mutation. Totally.
And webbed hands and feet.
Okay, but that's actually pretty plausible. Webbed hands and feet are like, that's a normal thing to happen in one mutation.
Yeah, and people today, there's some people that have more webby hands and feet, so that's not implausible.
Even dogs, different breeds of dogs, some of them have more webbing between their toesies because of the type of dog that they are.
So what happens with webbing, right, is in embryo, grow a limb bud. At the distal end of the limb bud, embedded in it, you get the digits that grow as little rays, right? And they're all in one big, like, club of flesh. And what happens is, as you develop, normally the tissue between the digits undergoes what's called apoptosis, which is programmed cell deaths. Cells, go ahead and unalive intentionally. And then...
So if I, in my later years, developed webbed hands and feet, how long before I get to be Spider-Man?
I don't think that's how you become Spider-Man. Because that's not webbing that you can squirt out. You need to actually develop your own technological device.
Not if it's the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Well, it's not. It's the Spider-Man.
Sorry, I just thought about the moment from No Way Home where all three Spider-Mans are comparing their spider powers, and Raimi Spider-Man shoots the thing out of his wrist, and they're like, okay. And he's like, wait, you guys can't do that? And they're like, no.
Anyway, so all that has to happen for a mutation to cause webbed digits is that something has to go wrong with the signal for the cells between the digits to die, and then you're just born with skin there. That's it. That's all that needs to happen. It's not actually a big complicated thing. Anyway, and this is true between every major kind of plant and animal, which I am never going to define what that means. So that way, no matter what transitions you give me, I can always just say, well, it's still a, and then just say whatever word. All higher categories of living things, such as complex invertebrates, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, flying reptiles, birds, bats, primates, and man, appear abruptly. Except that, no, actually we have... Well, okay, invertebrates is too broad of a category for me. Like, you did need to break that down a bit. But, like, we have transitions going from not fish to fish, from fish to amphibians, broadly defined, from broadly defined amphibians to reptiles, from reptiles to flying reptiles. That is an area where we don't have a lot of information. We go pretty much from things like Scleromoculus, which are pretty basal ornithodyrans, into like some of our first pterosaurs like Eudimorphodon pretty abruptly. I'll give them that. But from amphibians to reptiles, no. Birds, no, we have extremely good transitional series from dinosaurs into specifically avian dinosaurs. Bats are a little bit of a mixed bag. We don't have a great fossil record for bats. The earliest bats we have, though, are in fact much more basal than modern bats. Primates, actually we have a really good fossil record of primates going from very small, shrew rodent-like animals in North America all the way into humans. Oh.
Also, I have to mention this. I heard Bent Hovind argue against cladistics because obviously he doesn't understand it. He was just saying that he didn't think cladistics were a thing because, you know, a dog and a human, they aren't the same kind. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not an expert in biology, but I know how vaguely cladistics work. It's like you've got eukaryotes, and anything after that is still a eukaryote. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that dogs and humans are directly in the same descent line. It just means that whatever clade we both belong to, everything past that is still going to be in the same clade.
Yep. Yeah, Kent is almost completely incomprehensible of understanding that idea, and I actually have spent hours trying to get Cindy Lincoln to not necessarily agree with it, but to understand the point without ever having any success with it.
Listen, if you don't want to accept something, there's no amount of like rational explanation that's going to do it.
True.
So
sometimes it's also a matter of like just the foundation needed is there's a lot. Understanding a concept can sometimes be really, really, really difficult if you don't have the foundation of the concept in the first place, let alone if you have like the opposite.
But I mean, with them, it's a philosophical block. It's not a lack of knowledge block. Like,
right.
Decided theologically that these perspectives are incompatible. So no matter how many times you use rational explanations, it's just going to bounce right off.
Right. So
it's to admit that it makes sense, to admit that it's actually a thing, it's going to undermine your preferred theology, and they just don't want to do it.
Right. And so like what I mean when I say the foundation, I mean like the broad underlying foundation, which would include the understandings of philosophy and what is and is not accepted. I agree with you entirely. You're 100% correct is what I'm getting at.
Okay. Let me quote some comments by leading evolutionists. Okay, before I start, Charles Darwin was English, correct?
Yes, but also in 1974, he wasn't a leading evolutionist.
No, he wasn't.
He was a very dead evolutionist.
Do we want Charles Darwin to be just overly posh, or do we want him to be
full Cockney?
Well, I mean,
Darwin being
in terms
Cockney.
of historical accuracy, posh. But if you think Cockney would be more fun, we can go.
Oh, we got this evolution over here.
Okay, so I will opt for posh.
I was looking at some sparrows.
I don't have any personal animus against Charles Darwin.
Fair enough.
So I will go with posh to at least be fair, even though I know Dwayne Gish cannot do that. So if he's going to cherry pick, I'm at least going to entertain myself while I do it. Charles Darwin admitted that it's by this theory innumerable transitional forms must have existed. Why do we not find them embedded in countless numbers in the crust of the earth? the number of intermediate links between all living and extinct species must have been inconceivably great. Professor George Gaylord Simpson of Harvard University has said, gaps among known orders, classes, and phyla are systematic and almost always large. Professor E.J.H. Corner of Cambridge University has stated, I still think, to the unprejudiced, the fossil record of plants is in favor of special creation. There is no evidence of even one species changing into another. That is false. As the late Professor R. Goldschmidt of the University of California observed, it is good to keep in mind that nobody has ever succeeded in producing even one new species by the accumulation of micromutations.
This is just a formatting thing. Justifying your text is okay, but when you get to a line like with the gigantic gaps, maybe just put like a dash somewhere in micromutations, and then like just you don't have to justify that particular line. Like that's a thing.
It's so funny. Yeah, all these quotes like, okay, Professor E.J.H. Corner, that's nice that you think plants favor special creation. Congratulations. Who cares? What does the evidence lead us to? And Darwin lived at a time where we didn't have a lot of fossils. Spoiler alert, we have a lot of fossils now.
Yep. And in fact, he actually, in his book after this quote, then goes into reasons why the fossil record is not complete. And then also, I want to point out that Professor George Gaylord Simpson, as well as Goldschmidt, were both also people who were working on where to find things that we might fit into gaps and why gaps might be occurring, and how evolution actually proceeds in ways that might not always leave behind all of the transitions that you might like to see. Because the thing is, you got to remember, in order to say that just the fact that there are gaps in the fossil record is a problem for evolution, you have to argue that, one, the fossil record is complete and preserves at least one member of every single species ever to have lived, and that we have found one such member of every species ever to have lived. The fact that we're currently finding about 50 new dinosaurs a year, and that's just dinosaurs, belies the idea that we found every single species ever to have lived. And the idea that every single species is somewhere in the current fossil record is so ludicrous that I've never actually heard a creationist defend it specifically, even though it's a requirement for this transitional species thing. Aw, hi, Puck.
Puppy.
Uh-oh, Puck.
Boop the snoot.
Oh,
Don't boop.
I require snoot boop.
what a good boy.
Puck, go get your snoot boop. Oh, pork is interesting.
Yeah. Oh,
There it is.
Boop.
Ah!
But also, this whole, like, we've never seen one species turn into another species, that is false. Like, that is patently
Oh, yeah, that's
false.
been done experimentally as well as in the wild. We've seen speciation occur.
Good night.
Yeah.
If evolution is true, why don't we see living stages of evolution today? Shouldn't new organs and new structures still be appearing today?
They are.
They are.
Welcome to the wide world of things like placental lizards, who have litters in which sometimes some of the embryos develop with a pseudo-placenta internal to the lizard, and other cases they lay eggs within the same clutch. Or welcome to mud skippers, which are fish that currently run around on land most of their time. They spend more time above water than below it. Or
Welcome to the new age.
This is not related, but I have to agree with Ernie Matthews. Pescado con queso, ay que mierda. Pescado no es bueno con queso. Like, that's the one thing. I'm sorry, I don't get fish tacos with people put cheese on it. I'm like, fish and cheese, I can't.
it's not my favorite combo, no.
Doesn't it depend on the type of cheese?
Nah.
No. Look,
No, it's just there's no cheese that I've ever had that would enhance the flavor.
what
of
I
fish.
want
It
on like a
does
fish
not.
taco is like a little bit of like shredded cabbage at the bottom for like the extra crunch, and then like maybe some lime on top.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
That's
That
Lime.
pairs with
Mm.
fish.
Correct answer.
all right.
Surely, if evolutionary processes had truly existed in the past, they would still be operating today.
True.
Are
They
Surely,
are.
yes,
Congrats.
that is correct. Please don't call me Shirley. The fossil of the bird archeopteryx is claimed by some to be a link between birds and reptiles.
It is.
I mean, because it obviously is.
Yep. These are all true statements. But there was a world of difference between reptiles and archeopteryx.
Oh,
Sure.
let's see what they are. Let's see what the world of difference is.
But before that, broiled Parmesan or creamy Parmesan sauce with fish is recommended. Feta, if you have a Greek, so it's topped with fresh tomatoes and zucchini. This one's
I'm
a
sorry,
sandwich.
but here's the thing: like, exclusively in fish tacos, cheese does not belong.
Oh yeah, this one's in au gratin. That's interesting.
Like, if you're talking about Greek food, you might be able to get away with feta, maybe. But I'm like,
okay, well, I found this thing called a
tuna.
tuna ball. How do you feel about that?
But
That doesn't sound immediately appetizing.
I would have tried it on deployment.
Oh yeah, on deployment you'll try just about anything because it's all terrible.
yeah,
Okay, sorry. I'll put the link, and you guys can look at this, and you can tell me what you guys think.
it's okay to pair fish with cheese. Citation needed.
Hey, I gave the citation. If it had
Hashtag doubt.
press X.
Yes, I'm pressing X in my brain. Just X.
If it had wings, feathers, ellipses, and it flew.
Which it might not
That's
have.
not an if. The fact that it had claws on its wings does not prove that it had a reptilian ancestry. There are 2 birds living today that possess
It's a
claws.
lot more than 2, but okay.
All
Have we-
pale.
Do they know what a cassowary is?
I don't think they do.
All paleontologists, paleontology is the study of fossils, now acknowledge that Archaeopteryx was a true bird. All is a pretty bold
Yeah,
statement,
so
bro.
here's one of the things with that, right? What is a bird is a tricky question because bird is one of those common words, right? It's not a scientific term. So
Yeah, but neither is reptile.
that's true.
So I think this whole thing is nonsense at this point.
It is. But one of the things is,
Yeah.
first, if you say it's a true bird, first we have to know, what do you mean by bird? Do you mean aves? Because it's definitely not a member of aves. You mean aviale? Because maybe
fine.
it's probably a part of aviale. But is it a part of Dinosauria? Yeah, it's also a part of Dinosauria. Does it have traits that we don't see in aves, but that we do see in broader Dinosauria that indicate its transitional nature, like a long bony tail? Or it's not the claws, it's the fact that the wing fingers aren't actually fused together, right? In an avian wing, the 3 fingers are fused into one clubby bone with one little digit of one little phalange of the thumb sticking out. That's not the case here. It's not just
Oh my god, this
claws.
is so cursed. Shade Dragon says, though I will admit to making one dish with fish and cheese. It's a tuna casserole made with potato chips instead of noodles.
Okay.
That sounds like 2 a.m. high drunk food.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what that
That's what
sounds
that
like.
is. Yep. Also, I want to point out this picture has Archaeopteryx with a backward-facing first digit on the foot, which at the time was reasonable. No longer reasonable. The apparent inversion of the hallux of Archaeopteryx was a taphonomic artifact. That in subsequent finds, we've discovered that nope, its big toe was actually in fact a little toe, just like most dinosaurs. So yeah, we have a beak.
Stuck on the amount of
We have a mouth with no beak and a toothy maw. We don't have a keeled sternum. So a lot of creationists like to point to keeled sternums as a big part of being a bird, not an Archaeopteryx. Valkyrie Vision for $4.99 says, wasn't there a fish bird on the island of Misfit Toys?
Yes.
Mothra. Yeah, I
Mothra.
believe there was. And yes, Mothra.
Yes.
Which, by the way, guys, today is
Masuda.
not an official drinking stream. So if you send,
That's okay, I'll just drink some
oh
coffee.
yeah, you're fully welcome to send all of the emojis and whatever else that would normally be drink triggers, but we're not doing a.
It's too bad I can't show off my magic mug. So this mug, let me try to get it to where the green screen doesn't. There's a little black, dark brown spot, and this will change into a visible design when there's hot liquid in it.
Nice.
It's very cool.
That's cool. I'm having a little bit of trouble with this part of the comic strip just because there's like a whole lot of fucking assumptions.
I'm seeing something that looks like an okapi neck and head on like a deer body, maybe, and then there's like a dog with hooves.
Hoof dog, the greatest kind of dog.
It's a hoof dog.
No,
Okay,
he's
Alright.
also clearly not defined. So he's saying if it had wings, feathers, and it flew. So he's not saying that everything that has wings and feathers flew, but this one does.
Yeah, that's another odd one. Like, does the ostrich become less of a bird now that it can't fly? I don't know.
Okay,
Or a
so
I
penguin?
think we're up to me on this section. So
I was gonna say, wait, isn't this one? Did you read the thing about archaeopteryx?
yeah, we did.
Okay, so this is you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The alleged horse series was created more out of imagination than from fossil evidence. I mean, except that it's fossils of literally all of it, but okay. The fossils for this series are not found in the proper time sequence, as indicated by evolutionists, and the major types appear abruptly without transitions. I mean, they literally are the transitions, and they actually do come pretty close to being in the quote-unquote proper time sequence, where the more basal ones are earlier. But there are some basal members of Equidae that persist later than more advanced members in terms of foot morphology. But anyway, and there's an interesting discrepancy in the skeletal development of this series, which there isn't, but we'll talk about it. Eohippus had 18 pairs of ribs. Orohippus had only 15 pairs of ribs. Then Pliohippus, or Pleohippus, depending on which way you want to pronounce those vowels, jumped to 19. Equus scotti is back to 18. Hey, here's the thing, right? How many pairs of ribs do modern horses, Equus ferus caballus, do they have? You can't actually answer the question because it's actually something that varies within the species. Ribs counts vary within species. Humans don't all have the same number of ribs. There are people who are born with one or more pair fewer or more than normal. Also, you know the domesticated pig has breeds that have huge extra numbers of ribs. You know why? Because people like to eat them.
Because humans like to eat
Right.
them.
And this is something that you can just do. Like, if you look at like wild pigs, right, like the European boar, they have a pretty consistent rib count. But then you get to domesticated pigs, where there's the same species, just a domesticated variety, and you get huge long breeds that have like 5 extra pairs just for eating. Like, this is a really bad point. Like, oh, the rib count of fossil equids varies. Dude, it varies within modern equid species right now. Who cares? Also, we have a couple of super chats. So Inkboy says, for €5, although cassowary looks like a prehistoric dinosaur, it was not the bird to defeat the Australian army. That's true. Cassowary did not defeat the Australian army. That was instead the emu. Yes, Australia is the only country, as far as I'm aware, to lose a war to birds.
I mean, to be fair, the emu is one salty bird.
To be fair, birds are dinosaurs. So.
Also true.
They did technically lost to a dinosaur, so I'm not going to dunk on them.
I mean, these are all great points. DM Wing for $10 says, oh, hey, what does this button do? Well, it sends me a little bit of money, and it highlights your chat. So thank you very much, DM Wing. Science, or Simp, who is... Nope, not quite next. Oh, no, it is. Sorry, for some reason, my my viewer activity and my chat log are a little off. Science Simp 96 for $10 says, for the tutu. We are quite a ways away from the tutu, but it could happen.
For now.
Let's see. Valkyrie Vision for $4.99 says, might not be a drinking game for you, Mothra.
Mothra emoji. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Everything's a drinking game if you're not a coward.
I need to go shopping at the beer store.
Yes.
For beer.
BEERRUN. The NB, no, it was the one right above that. Don Giovanni says, objection! China also lost a war to sparrows.
Did they? Interesting. I'm going to have to look up the Chinese Sparrow War.
I know, like, is this lore that I'm unaware of? Like, cassowary, emu, and shoebill storks make it very easy to believe birds are dinosaurs. Yes,
No,
Shane,
okay,
I agree.
shoebill
storks
are not birds. They are Muppets.
I love that their beaks are so hardcore metal that they sound like machine guns when they're clacking them together. It's just...
By the way, Chris McDaniel's coming for you, Vishanti, because Chris McDaniel, who's been a member for 3 months, says, okay, my mom makes a baked fish smothered with mayonnaise and Parmesan cheese, then baked in the oven. Absolutely the best baked fish ever.
Can I talk real quick about how great it is having live chat and an interactive live chat in general, because these kinds of things happen?
Okay, you know what, Chris McDaniel? I bet your mom makes a delicious dish. I'm not going to even argue with that. I'm just going to say that is not for my taste buds.
There you go. But the next page is for you.
Okay. Let's see. Darwin cited the giraffe as an outstanding example of natural selection. Supposedly, as a result of extended droughts, the supply of green leaves could be obtained only at the tops of trees, and therefore the shorter-necked giraffe died off and all the giraffes which grew longer necks survived. However, there is no evidence whatever in the fossil record or elsewhere that giraffes with short necks have ever existed, and what would have happened to the young giraffes with relatively short necks? Theo copy is in the chat.
Yeah, okay, look, not only is there a living short-necked giraffe, the fossil record is just chock full of them. We have dozens of species of short-necked giraffes, and also many species of moderately long-necked giraffes. We've got the whole sequence there.
Isn't there like a relatively well-known talk that Richard Dawkins did dissecting a giraffe's neck and talking about the larynx going like all the way down the neck and how ridiculous that was?
Anyway, Darwin failed to realize that body characteristics and offsprings are determined and programmed by DNA factors of the genes or the genetic material of the parents and not by stretching of the neck or any other body. I'm fairly sure that Darwin was not into Lamarckian evolution. I'm pretty sure that was a significant difference that they had.
Yep, he specifically said that Lamarckism is not how evolution works. Now, it's true that he didn't know how genetics worked, right? But he thought that there was some part of an animal that was not affected by its life experience, right? Like stretching its neck didn't affect this. It was then passed on to the offspring. Now, he didn't know how new variations came about. He didn't know what part of the body this thing came from. He had this idea that every part of the body gives off these little gemmules that contain the basic like embryological information to make that part of the body, and that's what was in like egg and sperm when they combined. He didn't know how it actually worked. He was wrong about a lot of that, but he was specifically countering Lamarckism because at the time it was known that there were problems. For instance, if you take a population of mice and you dock their tails every generation and then let them breed after docking their tails, at some point you should get shorter tails. Yeah, you should either get no tail or at least shorter tail mice. They don't.
What's funny though is he failed to realize something DNA something. Well, everyone failed to realize that because DNA hadn't been discovered yet. Right. So congratulations, I guess.
It's a good thing that in the mid-19th century, Darwin didn't know about DNA, just like literally everyone else.
Just okay. The cover of the journal Science, December 9, 1966, shows a photograph of a bat fossil that's alleged to be over 50 million years old. This is said to be the oldest fossil bat, but it is the same as a modern bat. Why isn't there any evidence of change after 50 million years? Okay,
so a few things. First, it's not. So the oldest known bat, which I believe was discovered around that time.
Cheshire muted.
I know.
Was
I'm just making faces.
For one thing, it had claws on all of its digits, which modern bats have at most 2 claws on digits 1 and 2. Most bats only have 1 claw just on the thumb, and they use that to help grip things like the ground when they walk on the ground, because bats do that occasionally.
You just got me with they have 2 digits on numbers 1 and 2 as opposed to 5 and 7.
Well, so normally they have digits 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but 2, 3, 4, and 5 usually don't have claws. On some bats, digit 2 has a claw, and on all of them, as far as I know, digit 1 has a claw. So there's that.
If I had a Bible beside me, I would pull it out and say, yeah, and this one says that bats are birds. What's your point?
It does seem to say that, yeah. But also, there were no adaptations in this bat for any echolocation. And one of the interesting things is, you might say, okay, well, there are bats that don't echolocate now. However, as someone who recently looked into the evolution of bat echolocation, it looks like those bats actually might have secondarily lost echolocation. And echolocation might actually be something that evolved very early on in bat evolution. So I can't say for certain.
Bats are sky puppies.
But yeah. Anyway, I think the last speech bubble.
Okay, I got one more panel, but before I do, there's a troll in chat who's saying that bad design is not an argument against creation and that DNA is a code. All code required intelligence. No, calling DNA a code is anthropomorphic language that does not accurately represent what it truly is. We call it code because that's an analogy.
Oh, hey, it's Jeremy Nolan. He's back. And he actually did email Chesh, which I am pleasantly surprised about. So,
yeah, we're setting that one up now.
There you go.
Nice.
Anyway, let me go back to this. I will say, though, in response to, let me scroll up the NBead. It wasn't the NB, it was someone else. Tuna melt. Here we go. Tuna melt is a classic tuna and cheese combination, but does canned or shredded tuna really count as fish? I have to agree. Tuna melts are good, but it's like, does canned tuna like really count in the same?
I mean, I've seen how you get tuna. It's by bringing gigantic fish onto a ship.
Yes, I realize that, but that is possibly the one technical exception to the fish cheese argument. But again, my argument was strictly about fish tacos, so just saying, fish tacos, different story for me. Tuna melts on their own, actually pretty good. But, hey, whatever. Okay, final panel. It might be well now to look at the, quote, evidence which anthropologists have assembled in an attempt to reconstruct the evolution of man.
Some consider Ramapithecus to have been a hominid, a man-like ape. And this judgment has been made solely on the basis of a few teeth and a few fragments of the jaw. That's all the fossil fragments they have.
Okay,
Ramapithecus.
so
maybe in 1970.
Let's just say that's still true. Here's the thing. The human shape of the jaw with a very parabolic arch of the upper and lower jaw is in fact a very derived feature, as well as the smaller canines are a very derived feature in Homo sapiens. So if you can find something that is more parabolic instead of boxy in terms of the shape of the tooth row, and has reduced canines, guess what you have? You have an intermediate transitional fossil. That's what that is. So you don't need more than that to say, hey, look, this is intermediate between the basal ape condition and the derived human condition. That's all you need. Say it's intermediate between those two. So this is not a good point to say, just based on having found parts that actually vary between most apes and humans that are intermediate between the two, they think they have an intermediate fossil. Yes, that's how that works.
Yep.
I know that people have asked this before, but what exactly do they think a transitional form is supposed to look like?
Oh, they don't give an answer to that.
They don't know because they can't give you an answer.
Yes, the problem is that any answer that they give that would satisfy a evolutionary biologist to be like, yeah, that's a pretty good understanding of what we'd expect from the fossil record, is something that's already been found, so they don't even try.
Yeah, and when you say, oh, this is intermediate, they go, no, you just put that there. Okay, that's a great argument.
Where it belongs, yes.
Yes, exactly. Like, okay. Well, these are just
fits.
definitions you made up and you cram everything to fit it. It's like, no, that's what you do. That's ad hoc, but okay.
Dr. Jolly has recently reported that a species of baboon in Ethiopia has the same dental and jaw characteristics as Ramapithecus. These characteristics are magically therefore not those of man. Other anthropologists have agreed that Ramapithecus was simply an ape.
So a couple things there.
Or apes.
And yeah, so one thing is Unintrigued Feline points out that Ramapithecus may be a synonym for Cevapithecus, which is a member of the Pongan orangutans, basically. But we're just accepting what he's saying for now. So there's a few things. One, I wanted a citation for Dr. Jolly. Who is that? Where is he from? Where did he publish this? But also,
Dr. Jolly who?
Right. Also, baboons have very different mouths from humans. For one thing, they have gigantic canines compared to humans, so I would find it very, very unlikely to have found a baboon jaw that could be confused for a human ancestor jaw. But also, Ramapithecus was simply an ape. Yeah, that's all hominins. Humans are simply apes. They're weirdo apes, but it's sort of like whales are mammals. They're weirdo mammals, I'll give you that, but they're still mammals. You can't be like, oh, this fossil whale was just a mammal. Yeah, that's what a whale is. This fossil is just an ape. Yeah, that's how it works.
Do they lactate? Do they give birth to live young? Like, yes, that's what a mammal is. Like, oh, well, a whale is a fish. No, it's not. That's another thing. I want to be like, all of these creatures that they say are the same kind. So is the whale the fish kind, or is mammals a different kind, or what's going on here?
Oh, by the way, Science96 says, forgive the interruption, but my oldest kid says hello and that he loves you. Well, hello! I'm glad that you're watching and that you're loving this. So that's great. That's awesome.
Hello.
The first find of Australopithecines was by Dart in 1924. He pointed out many ape-like features of the skull, but he believed the teeth to be man-like. Its brain was only about 1/3 as large as that of modern man. It was only about 4 feet tall.
You just described a transitional fossil, my dude. What is happening right now?
Even like John Rapp in the chat says creationists think that transitional forms are half and half creatures, typically front and back or upper and lower, I presume. And I'm like, yeah, it's like mermaids or centaurs.
Even if that were the case,
their ideas.
Australopithecus is basically like human from the neck down anyway, for the most part. This is a pretty strong case that even if you go with that crazy definition, a lot of human evolution happens from the neck up after you get upright walking.
Just the whole idea that, oh, it walked on its knuckles. No, that's physically impossible. Yeah. Not possible that it walked on its knuckles. That's not a thing. Recently, and I learned that from
that's a given.
Yes, thank you. My brain is not fully online yet. But when she was explaining where your spine sits on your skull determines the most likely way that you walked around, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, because if it was, in the place that, not upright things walk, your head would just lop forward because heads are heavy. So there's a reason like our skulls have an attachment right at the bottom so that it balances over the rest of your spine.
Yeah.
Weirdos.
Recently, Richard Leakey, the son of Dr. Leakey, published evidence that indicated that the Australopithecines were long-armed, short-legged knuckle walkers, similar to living African.
No, he absolutely did not.
No, he did not. That is a lie.
That is just a straight-up lie. That's not even like
whoa, look out.
Dwayne, you got this a little bit wrong. You had a misunderstanding here, or I think you misread that. That's just a straight-up lie. Literally never happened. Nothing even close to that ever happened.
Oh man, you got to get the clip from the Jonathan Frakes show where he's like, "Nope, never happened. Total falsehood."
Yes, I have that. I have that saved. I got that one. I got the yes. Nope, no way.
Please.
No.
Okay, but I got to find a way to lip sync it to him in his Star Trek costume, so it looks like Commander Riker is saying, "We made it up." Hopefully, as he vaults his leg over the back of a chair,
yes,
so that
the Riker maneuver.
Hold on, let me see if I can find somebody that's already done it.
Oh, good.
Well, I think it's Chesh. I think it's your turn, though.
Well, these creatures were nothing but apes. There we go.
And
Chesh, do it after your turn.
I feel like this is more important. Okay.
Well, in China, because we could take a quick break while she finds it, and I could get snacks.
Yeah, you know what? That's not a bad idea. We'll take a quick break, guys. We've been going for a bit over an hour, so that's a reasonable time to take a quick break. Stick with us. When we come back, hopefully Chesh will have found what it is she's looking for, and we can come back and actually... So I had another comic book queued up. I think we're spending enough time on this. We might not even need to start up the second comic book. Maybe we can leave that for another week. You guys want to return and read... was it A Primitive Man? Or no, Primal Man? By Jack
Such
Chick.
a waste of good art, though.
We'll talk about it when we get there. All right, guys, so we're going to take a quick break.
Nobody's done it yet.
Oh, well. We'll still take a quick break. We're going to refresh drinks, and we'll be back in just a little bit. So, guys, I'll see you back in a few minutes. we are back, everybody. Before we get going, I just want to say my quick after-break spiel. First of all, thank you for sticking with me, the vast majority of you who did. Second, this show is almost entirely supported directly by fans. So if you want to help support the show, make sure that it can keep going indefinitely, check out some of the links in the description. There is a Patreon, there's a wish list, there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's also a wish list for Bent in there, as well as a link to get some of his music for free, directly downloaded into your hard drive if you want it. And also, my co-hosts here, Vishanti and Chesh, are also linked in the description. You can get to their channels, which also have wish lists if you want to do that. And if you also want...
Buy this mug.
There you go.
That's over on my channel.
There is a merch store also linked in the description, and if you want to join the channel to get access to things like channel membership, milestone chats, emojis, and things like that, then there is that link. But if none of that's something you want to do, just make sure you hit the like button, share this with people you think might like it, and leave a comment when we're done, because all of those things really help out the algorithm. And I'm also noticing that less than half of you have hit the like button, which means I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
Can I off topic real quick? Just because I was covering this over on my channel and Feline just pointed out that they had sent this to me on Discord. Elon Musk bought Twitter and his Twitter account is currently suspended.
Wait, is it him or is it a clone? Because
No,
a lot of people are saying like they're putting Elon Musk in their display name with they have the verified check, but their actual Twitter name isn't.
No, it's popping up as like legit. I'll go double check.
Well, I hope that's true.
Okay.
While Chesh is double checking that, we'll skip past her turn because she's very busy checking things. In China, during the 1920s, fragments of skulls, jaws, and teeth were found in a limestone cliff near Peking. I thought it was in a cave.
It's not real.
However, during World War II, all the original bones were lost. I mean, kind of, right? So the original find of quote-unquote Peking Man was in fact lost, so it was put on a train as the Japanese were sort of advancing into China, and it was hoped that it would make its way someplace safe. That did not happen. However, there are other finds of Homo erectus from China in the same area. By the way, Peking and Beijing are the same place. There are different romanization methods for Mandarin being used, basically. So Peking Man could just as easily be Beijing Man. Anyway, all these creatures had been killed and eaten, and the skulls preserved as trophies. No, there's no evidence that that's the case at all. There were evidence of other animals who may have been by actual Homo erectus. Some prominent anthropologists believe the hunter was true man. Ooh, you know what? We're doing the citation needed. Citation needed on that one there. PhD Gish. Peking man must have simply been a giant ape. It's Homo erectus, man. It's something most...
These are all apes!
They are all apes, but most creationists say Homo erectus was just a human. Which is one of the things I love about all of this, is he's all here like, oh, Peking man, that was just some monkey some guy ate. Dude, most of your colleagues are of the opinion that Peking man was an actual human. So I don't know what to tell you. Java man is put together on the evidence of a femur, a large leg bone, a skull cap, and 3 molar teeth. Again, since then, more Homo erectus remains from Java have been found, so, you know. These parts were found within a 50-foot range, in a space of 1 year. Okay. Dr. Dubois, its discoverer, concealed for 30 years the fact that he found human skulls near his Java man. No, he didn't. And at the same level, again, no. So man was already there when this creature was alive. I mean, yeah, I guess if Java man is a man. The femur was probably from a human. I mean, if by human you mean Homo erectus, then yeah. And the skull cap was probably that of a giant ape. Again, yes, because that's what humans are. Before his death, and after he convinced most of the early skeptics, Dubois changed his mind and decided that Java man was probably a giant gibbon and not man-like at all. I mean, even if that's true, great for him. Javanese Homo erectus is still a thing. I don't...
He sounds like he doesn't understand what evolution is, and he's actually just describing it with some incredulity, not realizing
that is a lot of what's happening. It's like, this thing that's transitional, you believe that's transitional?
I thought there were 6 types of evolution, and that's how it worked.
This is like how I respond to flat earthers when somebody references the moon, and I just say, you believe in the moon?
Yeah.
The moon is
That's like when Bent Hovind just repeats facts, but he says them with incredulity, so that's meant to be some sort of argument.
Right.
You
My
believe,
tone is my argument.
right? It's like, oh, you think that one species evolved into another species?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your point?
You stating my
People
position
believe in
with
our
an
argument.
incredulous tone means nothing.
God, it's so bad though. Just like provide actual evidence. Well, you think that evolution ended. Yes, provide your evidence that that's not the case.
I think it's time to end the poll, though. I think we have enough votes.
Ooh.
Let's see how we
Have
did.
we been brainwashed?
All right, have you been brainwashed? No, 43%. All hail Dr. Gish, 32%. Yes, 23%. Poll with 97 votes. Thank you very much, everybody. So,
Inconclusive.
yeah, not even most, so a whole bunch of you have not been brainwashed, but about a third of you are ready to hail Dr. Gish. PhD.
How would you be able to accurately like answer that poll if you're brainwashed? Like how do you know?
How would
That's
you know
why
Yeah,
I
that's a
voted
good point.
yes, because
I would recommend talking to Chris Shelton about it
There you go.
and his Scientology stuff,
There's a guy who
How
knows
do you
all about
know?
brainwashing.
right? How do you know if you've been brainwashed? You know what? I'm gonna message him right now. I'll be like, hey, do you want to come on and talk about how do you know you've been brainwashed?
What, on the Dapper Dino channel we talk about primitive man?
Well, I mean, I can bring it. Do you want to come on with him?
Sure, I'll go on.
Oh, okay. I'll send him a message.
Okay. But I think it's Vishanti's turn now.
Okay, is it? Also, yeah, Elon's account is not suspended. It's
Ooh.
all the people who are already verified who are renaming their display names.
Yeah, there's
They're
there's
going
somebody
out like legends.
somebody said that he apparently was suspended for verify it.
I don't know. Anyway. Okay, let me chew up
Crunch,
this
crunch,
Cheeto.
crunch. Making me hungry. Now
Okay.
I want Cheetos.
No regrets. Neanderthal is a skeletal structure similar to that of modern man. His cranial capacity exceeded that of modern man.
Yep,
Okay.
that's true.
It was claimed that he lived as long as about 100,000 years ago, to as recently as about 25,000 years ago. But all anthropologists now believe he was just as human as you and I.
No, Neanderthal,
No,
different
but
species.
also just as human as you and me. The grammatically correct there.
Yeah, that,
Whatever. Cro-Magnon man. Complete skeletons of the Cro-Magnons have been found. Yes.
true.
Their cranial capacity was greater than modern man.
False.
Cool. Who
Right,
cares?
even if it were true, it would. Who cares? But also, it's false.
If he were alive today, and if he were to walk down the street in a business suit, it would go completely unnoticed.
That's actually true, and here's why. You know what Cro-Magnon man is? It's anatomically modern humans. It's just you. He's basically saying, hey, these anatomically modern humans are anatomically modern. Yes, that is correct.
But also, I saw those Geico commercials. I would recognize Neanderthals and cavemen in suits. Gosh.
two of the most embarrassing so-called missing links for evolutionists are the Nebraska Man and the Piltdown Man. At the famous Scopes evolution trial in Dayton, Tennessee, the Nebraska Man evidence was presented by the leading scientific authorities of that day as proof of evolution.
When
Hey.
did this turn into a Frank Miller graphic novel?
Can someone in the chat actually double check to see if Nebraska Man was presented in the Scopes trial? Because I don't think it was.
Nebraska Man in the what trial?
Scopes, SCOPE. But while that's going,
Question mark.
Bent, if you could finish that panel off so we can talk about Nebraska Man.
They scoffed and laughed at William Jennings Bryan when he protested the scanty evidence. The evidence was that of a tooth that was supposed to have come from a prehistoric man who supposedly lived 1 million years ago. However, it was discovered that Nebraska Man was only a pig.
Peccary, not a pig.
I think this is a case where a pig made a monkey out of an evolutionist.
So let's talk about this a little bit. So what was Nebraska Man? It was in fact a molar of a peccary. Now, to be fair, humans and peccaries have similar diets overall, so their teeth are actually pretty similar, especially when they've been worn down like this one. However, no paleoanthropologist took Nebraska Man seriously which is one of the big reasons why I don't think it was actually brought up in the Scopes trial. It only lasted for a couple years as something that was even potentially the case, and it was very swiftly identified as a peccary by actual paleontologists because the guy who found it wasn't a paleontologist.
So all of the ones that pop up when I search "was Nebraska man presented in the Scopes trial" are all like Creation Evolution, creation.com, Talk Origins, which...
Wait, quick, check the Talk Origins one. That's actually a pretty good source.
Okay. Nebraska man was named in 1992 from a human-like tooth, blah, 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 blah. As a creationist tell the story, evolutionists used one of the tooth to build an entire species of primitive man and completed blah, 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 blah. Stories much more complex, blah, 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 blah. Rancher, geologist, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't say anything about the Scopes trial.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that was a lie then. I've never heard that it was used in the Scopes trial, and
Creationists often claim that Nebraska man was used as proof of evolution during the Scopes monkey trial in 1925, but this claim is I don't know how to read this word, apocryphal, apocryphal. Oh, thank you. Apocryphal. No scientific evidence was presented at the trial. Some evidence was read into the trial record, but this did not refer to Nebraska man.
Oh, so it's just another lie. Good to know. Thanks, Dr. Gish, for just blatantly lying to us. But I think it is Chesh's turn.
In 1912, Charles Darwin brought forth the Piltdown.
Dawson.
Oh, Dawson, sorry. Can Bent, can you read out the big part? Because you're funnier than I am.
Man.
Thank you. A piece of a jaw, 2 molar teeth, and a piece of skull was evidence claimed by experts that as that of an ape man who was about 500,000 years old. But in 1953, the hoax was exposed. The jawbone turned out to be that of a modern ape. The teeth had been filed down, and the bones were artificially colored to deceive the public. The ease with which this fraud fooled the world's greatest authorities illustrates the powerful influence of preconceived ideas among evolutionists.
All right, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. First of all, Piltdown Man did in fact affect primarily British paleoanthropologists. And there's a good reason for that. At the time, basically everyone in Western Europe was trying to prove that humans had evolved in their country. For nationalist reasons, right? The Germans wanted humans to be a German species. The French wanted humans to be a French species, and so on and so forth. Now, as time went on and more of the hominin fossil record was discovered, even well before 1953 when it was finally demonstrated to be a hoax, Piltdown Man was seen as less and less fitting into the fossil record, and so it was viewed with increasing skepticism as time goes on. Also, the way that it was shown to be a hoax basically wasn't even available until like the 1950s. The techniques to examine it simply weren't around. So you can say, oh, haha, they didn't notice for, like 41 years or whatever it is, right? Well, okay, great. When you don't have the forensic techniques available to actually detect the fraud, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know what to tell you. And yeah, you know who discovered it was a fake? It wasn't creationists. It wasn't the creationists saying, hey, ape man fossils shouldn't exist, let's examine Piltdown Man. It was the actual evolutionary biologists and paleoanthropologists who were like, hey, this doesn't really make any sense with what else we already know about human evolution. Let's take a look at this. Oh, it was fake all along. Well, that makes sense. This is a triumph of the scientific method. Anyway, sorry.
Near Glen Ross, Texas, find clear tracks. I read that wrong. Near Glen Rose, Texas, find clear tracks of dinosaurs and man have been found in the same rock formation. These prints are within a comedically timed sigh.
Yeah.
These prints are within a few yards of each other and sometimes even cross each other. Evolutionists simply dismiss these finds for reasons as stated by Albert C. Ingalls, quote, if man, ellipses, existed as far back as the Carboniferous.
The real reason we have Chesh on is to hear how she's going to pronounce the big words.
I've been doing so well about being not getting the big words.
I really like it when you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
I spent too much time watching Christopher Walken.
Oh, ooh.
Period in any shape. Then the whole science of geology is so completely wrong that all geologists will resign their jobs and take up truck driving.
Okay.
Sure.
Is like, are you shitting on truck drivers?
A little bit, yeah, I think he is.
I mean, listen, I'm not a big fan of like the Occupy truck stuff that's been going on in recent politics, but I mean, I agree that truck drivers need to be treated better because they kind of treated like garbage by people for a while. Hence, for the present, at least, science rejects the that attractive explanation that man made these mysterious prints.
So first, we're talking about
in 1974.
Yeah, in 1974. Also, he's not talking about the Paluxy tracks, which is what this is about. The Glen Rose tracks are in the Paluxy River. That's why they're often called the Paluxy tracks. He's actually talking about fossils from the Carboniferous, which is why he talks about the Carboniferous. And the Carboniferous, by the way, was, way back, long before these Cretaceous prints, these late Cretaceous prints from Paluxy, right? We're talking about, like, if you think the time between you and a T-Rex is a long time, the time between these prints and the Carboniferous is a much, much, much longer time. So anyway, we'll talk about the Paluxy tracks. There are two types of alleged man tracks in the Paluxy River. The first kind is deliberate hoaxes that were carved by locals mostly during the 20s to sell as tourist items because, in case you guys don't... Oh, sorry, not the 20s, not the 30s. In case you guys don't know about the 30s, it was a rough time for, the world. Things weren't going too well. People didn't have a whole lot of spending money. So...
Can't imagine why.
Yeah. So, basically, people were just, out of desperation, carving hoaxed prints. And the thing is, you can look at these hoax prints, and they look like what someone who doesn't know anything about foot anatomy would carve as a human footprint. And they very obviously aren't actually intrinsic to the rock, right? So when you have actual footprints, things happen like you get ray sediment around the edges. These don't have that because you can't really fake that. They tend to have, like different texture than what happens if you chisel rock, whereas these have the texture of chiseled rocks. The second kind of alleged man track is actually just a dinosaur track, specifically ornithomimids. So one of the things about the sediment that formed these tracks is it was very loose. And so a lot of cases, sediment around the digit impressions, the toe impressions, collapsed back in. Now, with the larger theropods and sauropods that are present at the site, that does not obscure the nature of the track. When you have the ornithomimids, who have relatively small feet, that ends up actually keeping an impression of a fair bit of the metatarsal region of the upper foot, because they're walking on their feet, but, and the sediment is so soft, some of your metatarsal region is sinking in. And then, when you have those relatively skinny toes, like a mimid dinosaur, this is animals like Gallimimus that you might remember from Jurassic Park, then that collapses back over, and you get a vaguely human foot-shaped kind of print. But when you look at them more carefully, do different lighting conditions, and you check the actual texture of the stone, you can actually still see the impression of where the three different toes were. So we know these are ornithomimid prints. This isn't a question. The thing is, it's to the point now where basically the only creationist still pushing this is Carl Baugh, and he does it because his museum in Glen Rose, Texas, is a stone's throw away from these tracks in the first place. As far as I know, not even Bent Hovind is still pushing the Paluxy tracks.
Wow.
Yeah. When you're at the point where even Bent Hovind's like, I don't know, that's a pretty bad argument, maybe this isn't a great argument, and it never really was.
Maybe you should rethink your entire life.
Well, Dwayne Gish can't, because he's been dead for many years. Oh goodness, I just get a block of text. Here we go. But
read it all the way through and then do the commentary.
Oh well, I was asked to do this with a William Shatner, which I wasn't really prepared for. So let's see what happened.
Yes.
But in August 1970, But in the August 1973 issue of Reader's Digest, there was a report about two phenomenal discoveries which were recently made in Africa. These discoveries have shaken the anthropological world because they challenge the validity of long-cherished theories concerning
You're going to
the
need
origin
to
of man.
exaggerate that. like a lot.
Okay.
Do it like the over exaggerated, very
logical.
inaccurate version from Family Guy.
1. Was the finding of a human skull,
God damn it.
dated by evolutionists to be about 2.8 million years old.
Like this. Most textbooks state that the first man did not evolve until around 1 million years ago.
Yet, the bones found are said to be even more modern than those of Pithecanthropus, our presumed man-like ancestor. Obviously, these presumed ancestors cannot be man's true ancestor. For whoever heard of parents being younger than their children? The second was the finding of skeletons so sophisticated humans who are so sophisticated humans who are reputed to have lived 100,000 years ago. They had developed the art of mining, were able to keep records, count, and had also developed sophisticated. But, according to the evolutionists, this type of sophisticated human was not. Wait, we're not? Come on, man, grammar! Match the number on the verb to the number of the subject, man. This is not hard. You're speaking English.
No.
English has basically no grammar when it comes to verbs, and you can't even get it right. Anyway. Was not supposed to have appeared on the scene till 65,000 years later. I, personally, that's the citation, I personally heard Richard Leakey, the discoverer of the 2.8 million year old man, speak in San Diego. In commenting on these two discoveries, Mr. Leakey stated, "What we have discovered simply wipes out everything we have been taught about human evolution, and I have nothing to offer in its place." All right.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Like I missed the majority of that. My brain just was like.
I'll read it a little quickly. Okay. But in the August 1973 issue of the Reader's Digest, there was a report about two phenomenal discoveries which were recently made in Africa. These discoveries have shaken the anthropological world because they challenge the validity of long-cherished theories concerning the origin of man. One was the finding of a human skull dated by evolutionists to be about 2.8 million years old, which we don't get a citation for. Most textbooks...
Wait. Validity of long-cherished theories.
Right, that's true.
Used
Theories is
incorrectly.
got extra space around it. It's bolded. Most textbooks state that the first man did not evolve until around 1 million years ago. I mean, it depends on what you mean by the first man, like the first Homo sapiens. Later than that, where does humans start? I don't know. There's no. Human isn't a scientific term, right? Yet the bones found are said to be even more modern than those of Pithecanthropus, our presumed man-like ancestor. What is it? Where is this? What are you talking about? Because you've already lied many times, Dr. Gish. So I don't know if you're lying right now. Obviously, these presumed ancestors cannot be man's true ancestors, for whoever heard of parents being younger than their children. Well, there's a few things there, right? So let's just say it's the case, right? That 2.8 million year old Homo sapiens fossils were found. That actually doesn't erase the transitional nature of the other hominins that we find, because transitional species can persist, right? Basal traits can persist in one lineage, while another lineage becomes more and more derived. We see this now, like I was talking about, where we have basically transitional vertebrates, right? The hagfish is an extremely basal chordate. Not even a real vertebrate. It's still around. And that record aren't also transitional vertebrates just because one of them is still hanging out. Doing weird hagfish things, like creating slime and tying itself into a knot. Let's see. The second one was the finding of skeletons so sophisticated humans who were reputed to have lived 100,000 years ago. That's actually pretty close to about how long ago Homo sapiens evolved. They had developed the art of mining. Citation needed. They were able to keep records. No, they absolutely were not. There is no evidence of writing from 100,000 years ago. Count? How would you know? And had also developed sophisticated tools. That, okay, maybe. I mean, there were lots of sophisticated Stone Age tools. I don't know. But according to the evolutionists, this type of sophisticated humans was not supposed to have appeared on the scene until 65,000 years later. I mean, dude, that's just not true. Now, when it comes to, like, writing and mining, yeah, sure, but you don't actually have any evidence of writing and mining 100,000 years ago. And then, of course, we just get Dwayne Gish personally heard Richard Leakey at some point somewhere say that, in San Francisco, or San Diego. So it is not somewhere, it's specifically in San Diego. And commenting on these two discoveries, Mr. Leakey stated, "We have discovered simply wipes out everything we have been taught about human evolution, and I have nothing to offer in its place." I don't think this ever happened. Because if you notice before... If
it happened, it didn't happen that way, because I highly doubt that he would actually repeat what Leakey allegedly said rather than what he thought it meant.
That's a good possibility. Also,
it was probably taken out of context too.
And if you notice earlier, he was very specific about which finds. He was like, "This is Peking Man. This is Java Man." Now, those aren't the official, technical descriptions of those individuals, but whatever, you can still find those finds, right? You can look that up. But here he's just like, "There was a find somewhere in Africa recently." Oh, was there? What's it called? Where was it published? Who found it? None of these details. Whereas earlier, we did get those details. We got names.
I would also like to note that Leakey is not spelled Leaky. It's Leakey.
Because he's not a pipe.
Because he's not a pipe, exactly. Also, and I'll say this on air just in case, I'm going to time out Jeremy every time he calls Dawkins a priest.
No,
science doesn't have priests. Fair. Stop doing that. It doesn't become true just because you say it a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So, stop that. Anyway, let us now consider the beginnings of life itself. By chance, nothingness developed into substance that evolved into a very highly complex organization without a designer. Darwinists assume that life or the primitive cell arose by pure chance. For example, by chance some amino acids were formed. Then from these, the necessary protein was formed.
Oh, goodness.
I don't like it when these things start talking about, like, chance and statistics, because the chance is actually 100%, because we only have one example.
Right.
So, like, as soon as you say, well, it's like saying that if you look at your hand of cards, and you have 52 cards in a deck, and you look at your hand and it's a full house, and you say, there's a chance that I drew a full house on this hand, but you're holding it. You're holding a full house. The chances 100%. Are 100% because you already have them.
Yeah, and also it's the case that even if we were to try to figure out the prior chance of these things, these are not all chance processes. So when he's talking about, like, nothingness developed into substance, the only thing I can think of that he's talking about is the Big Bang, right? The thing is, we have no way to figure out the prior chance of this. However, when it comes to things like amino acids and things like that, we actually know that this inevitably results under certain chemical conditions which were plausibly present on the early Earth. There's not a chance thing here. This is like, oh, gee, what are the chances that if I put a hunk of wood in an oven at, 1,000 Celsius that it might catch fire? It's 100%.
100.
Yeah, it's 100%. I guarantee you.
But also, cosmology is not biological evolution.
Yeah, that's another thing.
And no one has ever taught that nothing became everything.
Well, except for
creationists.
You
can't even define what nothing would be.
Except for the creationists, who tend to believe in creation ex nihilo. Which is literally what something coming from nothing is.
Something coming from nothing, that's creationism.
Mm-hmm.
Non-living matter bringing forth life is creationism. Like, they literally believe that water brought forth animals. Mm-hmm. They literally believe that humans were created out of dirt. Dirt contains, among other things, rocks, sand, sometimes decomposed organic matter. So, who actually thinks that rocks are their parents? Creationists.
And as an intrigued feline points out, this was written around we'll call it 20 years after. Some of the first experiments, like the Miller-Urey experiments, were conducted that showed that, in fact, amino acids definitely form in non-biotic processes that were at least plausibly relevant to Earth before life.
Yeah, this is moving into abiogenesis.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we get
The first problem.
big numbers, guys. We got big numbers coming up.
Oh no!
Get ready for it, too. The first problem is that the rate of destruction of even relatively simple chemical compounds, such as amino acids, by ultraviolet light or electrical discharges, far exceeds the rate of formation. No significant quantity would thus ever be produced. I feel like that's just not true.
So it's kind of true if the Earth were like one small puddle constantly being hit by lightning. But
which it obviously is, right?
As it turns out, no, it's like a whole planet complete with things like oceans.
Is that why I've heard of oceans before?
In fact, I believe you lived on oceans before.
I don't want to remember that.
I don't even know what that number is.
You're going to hear it. Another insuperable barrier is that these amino acids would have to be arranged in an exact sequence to form a protein, ellipses, just like the letters in a sentence. Mere laws of chemistry and physics cannot do that.
Laws are something that describe something that's already happening. The laws themselves aren't doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
This is backwards.
A weird way to phrase that.
And laws are below theories.
The probability of a protein of only 50 amino acids forming by chance would be 1 over 10 to the 65. Or in layman language, dash 1000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000, comma 000 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 to 1. Even the very simplest cell contains several thousand different kinds of proteins and many billions of each kind. Why is that underlined randomly? Plus all kinds of DNA, RNA, and other highly complex molecules, along with many complex structures arranged in an incredibly complex system, complex. Highly organized structure of a molecule of DNA.
Oh, hey, fun fact for Jeremy Nolan. The person who timed you out, not an atheist. Just gonna put that out there for you.
Me neither. Roasted.
Yeah.
But also, cry harder, you giant diaper baby.
I'm the only atheist here.
Well, the only confirmed atheist.
I'm the only confirmed atheist here. Vishanti and Bent just aren't atheists yet.
Well, I would say that I'm not a strict theist right now. I'm very agnostic. It's because I'm in the middle of a deconstruction process, so I've been leaning, one or the other depending on my mood. So I'm not gonna be like, yeah, I'm totally atheist, but I'm not gonna be like, no, I'm an atheist, because neither of those describe me right now. So I'm in a liminal space.
You're 0.75 of a theist.
Is that how that works?
0.65, it might be 0.45.
I only 50% believe in something.
Right.
Also, guys, if you're playing Creationist Bingo, you can mark off big number, therefore God.
Yes.
That is a very large
And
number.
also,
Yes.
I like on the right here, we're just getting conflation of the simplest modern existing extant life with the first life ever to form, which would have been radically simpler than the simplest cell that currently exists. Probably would have only barely qualified as being cellular, or might not have even actually qualified as being cellular. So, yeah.
What about a virus?
Viruses are subcellular.
Maybe it was something like that.
Yeah, it very well may have been. I think this is Chesh's turn. Chesh, we skipped you like twice. You gotta actually take a turn.
We do 2 panels.
I thought I was just here to be dumb. DNA and I didn't know I was gonna have to read. DNA and RNA are required to produce protein enzymes, but protein enzymes are required to produce DNA and RNA, which then came first. What's holding up my pants? My belt or my pants?
So first, DNA is not required to make proteins and enzymes. Today, viruses make protein enzymes without DNA if they're RNA viruses, But also, we actually know that RNA can itself catalyze the formation of either more RNA or proteins all on its own without the help of anything else. And RNA is something that can spontaneously form in known prebiotically relevant chemical conditions. So all of this is just wrong. Sorry, Josh.
I mean, if you're just going to interrupt me. I'm sorry, I'm kidding. Dr. N.W. Pyrie?
Sure.
Prairie without an A? Of the Rothamsted experimental station at Harpenden, yay, England. I don't do anything. Don't ask me to read. Rejects this whole concept of spontaneous biogenesis simply on the well-founded fact that, quote, complicated molecules such as proteins do not, in our scientific experience, arise spontaneously, even by stages. And all forms of life known today are dependent on protein, end quote.
Cool, you found a guy who agrees with you, Dr. Gish. I don't care.
Yay. Dr. John Moore spoke during the annual sessions of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. He described the theory that man evolved from, quote, amoeba and sea slimes as a, quote, incredible religion, but not, quote, science.
Well, good, because no one thinks that.
Why would you put... Right, but why would he put science in quotes?
Random quotations. Yeah. It's what they do.
Yeah.
I understand the first two, but not the last one.
Yeah, I don't know. In fact, I don't even know who John Moore is.
Just some guy.
Yeah, some guy.
He's a doctor.
Oh. That answers
You know what? Here's a fun fact. Anyone can just put doctor in front of their name, and there's no law that forces you not to. You can just fraudulently do it. So whenever Dwayne Gish says Dr. So-and-so, I'm always at least a little bit suspicious because I know plenty of fake doctor creationism. Or people who have real doctorate degrees, but not PhDs in any kind of science, like dentists or something. And it's that's not exactly an easy degree to get, and I'm not bagging on people who get that degree, a hard degree. However, it doesn't really prepare you for this particular topic. But I
mean, there are people in fields like music that have PhDs. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they're specialists on biology.
Yeah.
Just because they're
another example is Dawkins talking about anything related to philosophy. He's not a philosopher. He doesn't.
Oh no, you mentioned the priest.
Right? Oh no, not the priest. He doesn't have a degree in philosophy, so a lot of what he says from a philosophical standpoint comes into large amounts of question because it doesn't make sense for him to be speaking in that field because that's not what he's studied in, right? And you could say the same thing about Hitchens talking about biology. Is he's gonna get stuff wrong because he's not a biologist.
Yep. All right. Dr. John Moore stated, chromosome variation in animals does not correspond to predictions based on evolution theory. Someone's getting a whole lot of feedback. Or not feedback, but a whole lot of noise. Was it Chesh? Oh. Ben, can you mute for a second? Yeah, I think it was Bent. I don't know what changed with the microphone, but suddenly there was a whole lot of noise. Yeah, it's back.
I don't know what it sounds like. I just had my microphone on like normal.
All right. Anyway, there is absolutely no pattern of increase of chromosome number from less complex to more complex, but this should take place if evolution were to... Says who, dude? No one thinks that. Dr. John Moore is officially not an evolutionary biologist as far as I'm concerned. This is... Whoever said that more...
Of course, I made it up.
That's completely nonsense.
Source 1974.
Furthermore, hereditary material in genes of chromosomes, Dr. Moore continued, shows great variation, frogs having more genetic material than do humans, which contradicts the theory of evolution. No, it doesn't. Darwinism is more illogical than biological. Look, there is nothing in evolution that predicts which lineage should just have more raw genetic material. Nothing. Plus, here's a fun fact.
It's dumbfounding.
It is. Here's a fun fact. Frogs aren't less evolved than humans. Frogs,
What?
the lineage leading to frogs has been evolving just as long as the lineage leading to humans. They're not less evolved. They are evolved.
It's the misnomer. It's just the misunderstanding that evolution means better, when in biology it does not mean necessarily better. It just means more likely to survive under specific circumstances. And so, like, a chicken versus a velociraptor, or like me versus chimpanzee, both are going to be very good at different things, right?
Also,
And so
if you put a hairless creature in a frozen tundra,
Mhm.
they're not going to survive very long, and they're certainly not going to produce abundance of offspring. So when you talk about something being better, it has to be related to the traits and their environment.
Believe it or not, biology, current evolutionary biology, and evolutionary biology of the 1970s was not Pokemon.
Yeah. Professor Henry Morris has shown that the theory of evolution contradicts the universally accepted laws of thermodynamics.
Oh my god, Henry
Ugh.
Morris as a source. I'm cackling.
Once again, guys, that's another...
Take a shot.
Seriously, that's another bingo card spot right there, is second law. The second law of thermodynamics states that all things left to themselves always tend to go from complex to simple. No, that is not at all what it says. From the organized to disorganized. Again, not actually what it says. Evolution will require just the opposite, the continually building up from the simplest... Okay, so... say continual, man. The continual building, because... Okay, once again, grammar, dude. Alright, you're using an adjective to modify the noun building, which is gerund. It's not the continually building, it's the continual building. It's continual is the adjective, whereas you're trying to use an adverb, which you use to modify adjectives or verbs, but building in this case isn't actually a verb.
Or other adverbs.
Or, yeah.
But not nouns.
Right. Not nouns.
It's the one thing you can't do.
Yeah, but this right here is a noun. You're using the gerund, which is what happens when you take a verb, make it a noun, meaning the action of the verb. Anyway, the continual building up from the simplest to the more complex forms. He published this. This went through an editorial process at some point. Someone looked at this and was like, yeah, no, this is fine to publish. Anyway, the second law...
I mean, I think your example of language that you just described demonstrates that anyway.
All right, so the second law of thermodynamics says that in a isolated system, entropy, which is the availability of energy to do further work in the system, either stays the same or goes up, which means less work can be accomplished by the system over time, or the amount of work that can be accomplished by the system over time has to stay steady. Okay, how does this apply to life? I mean, it just doesn't. Life isn't an isolated system. Earth isn't an isolated system. So
there's all this energy that comes from the what now? That big giant ball of fire, because the air and space is different. Is that how it works?
I think it's the moon because it's its own light. Right?
Oh
no, it's the sun. You're right.
The moon is a light. The sun is a star that gives off a lot of energy that plants like to use for what is it? Photosynthetics, something like that. Who could know?
It's impossible to say.
The sun is the planet if you go by the ancient, Sumerian definition.
Well, I mean, ultimately, by the definitions of most people up until, the 18th century.
Well, if they were right about, planets and the shape of the Earth, I don't see why we can't just use that, because ancient people were super mystical and way smarter. Otherwise, how did they build stuff?
Photosynthesis?
That's it. That's correct.
No, it's photography.
Vishanti, I think you're up.
I would now like for us to consider the complexity of the order and design of our planet and universe.
We've gone
In
to
researching
space.
the size of the Earth, we discover that the mass and size of the Earth are just right.
For what?
For
They are the size that they are, okay?
What does that even mean?
they sure are a size.
The mass is its mass. Just
If
right.
the Earth's diameter was 7,200 miles instead of 8,000, almost the whole Earth, due to a lessening of its atmospheric mantle, would be reduced to a snow and ice waste.
Gonna need.
Oh,
I want
what
to
are the
see
odds?
that. I want to see your work on that. Because
If there were a variation of only 10%, we know it on Earth would be possible.
This is like
Correct.
rare Earth hypothesis. I mean,
yeah,
Correct. Life as we know it would be different.
Right.
What's your point?
Life evolved to adapt to current or to its then current experience on Earth. So yeah, okay, life would be different if Earth were different. Yep, that's true.
Hey, did any of you guys ever watch Andromeda?
I watched that.
Where Kevin Sorbo's bones are dense.
Just like his skull.
Well, that is a bone. Be fair.
What a twerp.
What a twist!
If the average temperature of the Earth were raised but 2 or 3 degrees, you could
me staring in climate change.
Right? This is just
God.
Dwayne Gish being woke on climate change right here. That's what this is.
Without realizing.
Yes, it is.
You could bid goodbye to many of the big cities of the Earth, for the glaciers would melt, and that in turn would flood many of the big cities. This would also inundate. What?
Does this mean that Republicans are going to start caring all of a sudden?
Just point out that, hey, your
it.
boy Dwayne Gish was concerned about this. Maybe you should be too.
In 1970s.
Oh.
This would also inundate hundreds of thousands of square miles of our most fertile lands.
Yeah.
The Earth's axis, which now points toward the North Star, is tilted just right, at the strange angle of 23 degrees from the...
Why is that a strange angle?
Why is that strange?
What angle would be less strange there, Dwayne?
That is,
well, you
in
see,
relation to
if
the
you
plane of its
subtract
orbit.
23 from 90... Or what does the flat earthers say? If you subtract
It's like if you
it
subtract
from
like
90,
23.4 or something.
And it's like, oh no, a number.
Yeah.
The Earth is satanic.
Because of this tilt, the sun appears to go north in the summer and south in the winter.
Yeah, if you're in the
giving
northern
us 4
hemisphere.
seasons in the
No, I guess
temperate
both cases.
zone.
Well,
And then I don't even know what these
well, those are just
drawings
that's
are.
summer.
I know they're the seasons, but
That's
like,
summer, fall, winter, spring.
the sun can't really smile at you. And I don't know who is that.
Oh, wait.
Could be like God's grandmother blowing air.
The sun
Like, what's
can
going
smile
on?
at you. I sent Dapper the photo this week.
That's true.
Yeah, I did see that photo
Yeah.
actually.
Dapper, if you feel like showing that, you would be able to prove this wrong.
Maybe if you send me the link, but right now I don't feel like hunting it down.
I sent it in your DM.
Yeah, but I don't.
The smiley
But that
sun.
was a while.
Okay.
Scroll all the way back up.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I'm literally going to send it to you again right now, and I'm going to put it in the side chat of this call.
Okay.
Right
Show
now.
it while I read the rest of this page. For the same reason, there is twice as much of the land area of the Earth that can be cultivated and inhabited as there would be if the seasons. Think what would happen if the Earth were tilted any other way than it is. I mean, other variations in the tilt would be different, but you'd still have plenty of cultivatable land. That is a nice sun smiling. But,
Is it? It looks
But-
kind of like he's up to something.
Well, you know.
it is a little anthropomorphization.
I'm gonna drop on Mario when he runs by.
Definitely not pareidolia.
That's the Arizona level of Mario.
Yeah.
Josh, have you heard of Mario? Super Mario Brothers?
We can explain it to you if you want later, Josh.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, guys. Always looking out for me.
Cooking the pizza.
Are we on to the next?
That doesn't sound like Chris Pratt.
What
Oh
a
god.
weird choice for Mario's voice actor.
Bob Hoskins was a better Mario. He was actually had a New York accent. That was good.
I think
Mario, and Luigi Mario.
That's right. I will not tolerate the Super Mario Brothers movie hate. I love that movie.
think we're on to Chesh, and we only have 2 more pages after this. We're gonna make it through this cartoon, I guess.
That sun got mad. We live miraculously on this planet, protected from 8 killer rays from the sun.
8.
8?
To which Ericamian sends $20 to say, does anybody else want Godzilla versus 8 killer rays to exist? Yes.
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 I don't know, but I'm gonna start adding this to solars of Palor. So the god of the sun, he gets these 8 killer rays that are
Nice.
high-ranking solar angels. They all have a different ray beam
By the way,
from a beholder.
Toho has announced next year new Godzilla movies coming out, so
Ooh.
yeah.
So hype.
That's going to be awesome.
Okay, don't let me forget about the solars, because I will forget. So Dapper, remind me later.
I'll type it to you right now.
Okay, thanks. 8 killer rays from the sun by a thin layer of ozone high up in our atmosphere. If that little belt of ozone, approximately 40 miles up and only 1/8 of an inch thick, if compressed, should suddenly drift into space.
Why would you compress it?
Why would it drift into space?
What is happening right now?
Why not compress it more than that so it's even thinner?
Right?
Why compress it at all?
I'm having a fever dream. All life on Earth would perish.
No, it wouldn't. There'd be plenty of life under the water that would be just fine.
The first miracle in the light of what the rest of the universe is like. I didn't say that with enough emphasis, but I'm not rereading it. In the universe as a whole, liquid water of any kind, sweet or salt, is an exotic rarity.
I mean, laughs and Jovian moons. I mean, it's...
Yeah, really.
The Earth isn't even the location of the majority of the liquid water in the solar system.
Contrary to common belief, the liquid state is exceptional in nature. Most matter in the universe seems to consist either of flaming gases, as in the stars, or frozen solids drifting in the abyss of space.
Guys, the sun isn't on fire, in case you didn't know. I feel like my audience knew. Oh my goodness, this is just Matt Powell nonsense. Well, I mean, the sun needs oxygen because for the fire.
The damn truth.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I've got news for you, folks. There's no oxygen in space.
Dark Claw Dragon for $5 says, should read the next page the way William Shatner delivers his line. I already did that.
Don't make him do it again, please.
Yeah, I can't do it a second time.
It's the last page. Last page.
This is the penultimate page. You just read the antepenultimate page. And who read it? Was it Shanti, right?
Do you think this guy knows that the orbit of the Earth is elliptical and not fully circular, and therefore the degrees of which the sun is closeness to us is a considerable amount depending on the time of year?
I don't think he does.
Where it is in the rotation.
But also, these numbers are now inaccurate. It takes the sun 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 48 seconds to make its journey. That is slightly inaccurate now.
Nice.
Time happens, allegedly.
Wait, whose turn is it?
Yours.
Is it mine? Okay. It was Chess last. Okay. The amazing accuracy and smoothness with which the universe revolves as a flawless, perfect machine. What would a flaw in an orbit look like, Dr. Gish? Like, what would that be?
Would it be like a little bubble, like a little?
Yeah,
is it like a little hop over?
Yeah, Earth has to take a little skip over like an intervening asteroid or something. What does it even look like to have a flawed orbit? Can be seen in the perfection that characterizes the journey of our Earth around the sun. It takes the Earth 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 48 seconds to make its actual journey around the sun. Wouldn't it be nicer if it were just 365 days? Wouldn't that be more perfect? Because then we wouldn't have to do...
That would be perfect and flawless.
Yeah. No leap days, no leap months, none of that stuff.
No leap seconds.
Yeah, none of that.
I like how we just made up this time, too. Like, maybe it is perfect, and we're just messing around via semantics.
Yeah, maybe that exact number of seconds is actually the perfect amount, and what's wrong is actually the day length.
Yeah, the way we messed it up.
The Earth has varied.
Why is this sun not smiling?
The Earth has varied in only the slightest degree, during history, right? Which is a fairly small amount of time, but also, if it was perfect, it wouldn't be varying. None but an infinite God could achieve such flawless, continuous perfection. And by perfection, you mean taking on a value. Because that's all you've said so far is, there's a value to the orbital period of the Earth, which, yeah, there would have to be. So then what? Now what? Oh, it's a perfect value. How do you know? What's the perfect value? What would be wrong if the value were slightly different? I believe, as God states in the Bible, Romans 1:20, that nature and creation itself reveals that there is a creator. We know that for every design there is a designer. Well, you haven't shown that there's a design, so okay. And for every law there is a lawgiver. Well, these aren't laws in the sense of things that a legislator or the head of state has put down. These are just observations about reality. In the beginning, God created is still, the most up-to-date statement on the origin of the universe and all that it contains.
Oh,
okay.
It doesn't tell us anything about that, though. The thing is, look, you want to believe in general creation, that's fine, great, have fun. But saying, I believe in general creation, which is all that Dwayne Gish is saying here, doesn't actually tell you anything. This is what cosmology is trying to get us.
Can I point out that at no point in this comic that's trying to ask if you're brainwashed or not has it defined what brainwashing is?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
But
I won't bring it up.
Also,
then.
we're at the last page. But you know what the last page is? It's the thing that
It's just a bunch of
it's-
preaching. We're gonna skip it.
It's the thing we don't allow on the channel, which is just direct preaching. Well, guys, I honestly wasn't sure how long it would take to get through that. It took us longer than I was expecting. Although, to be fair,
Why?
well, because okay, I forgot that this thing was 30 pages long, and I thought it was like 20,
15
or
something.
20, yeah. So that's a big part of it. But I want to do another one of these. I don't know if it's going to be next week or something. We'll schedule that. But we have a new Jack, well, not new, but a Jack Chick comic that I have never read before called Primal Man. And wouldn't you believe it, but our protagonist is a blonde-haired, Aryan, Ubermensch full of muscles, and our villain is a skinny, effeminate, very, very Jewish-looking man. Because
I'm going to put out my
different?
bias right now. I have two things that I really, really like, and it's himbos and twinks. So, Twink Link is my kink. He's both a himbo and a twink.
So this is going to be right up Chesh's alley, apparently.
This is going to be right up my alley.
It's literally like someone drew the Happy Merchant, but just gave him longer
It
hair
really
instead
does.
of a kippa.
If you guys don't know what the Happy Merchant is,
it's
just
bad.
Google it. I'm not going to be putting the
no.
Happy Merchant up on the channel.
Oh, no.
But
Is that like the Happy Mask Salesman?
if you'll recognize the Happy Merchant if you look for him. Basically, it's like the most famous stereotype of a Jewish man that has ever existed. It's like where stereotypes of Jewish men in art come from, basically. Anyway, yeah, so that's...
Because they all look like Northern European people.
So anyway, that's going to be, I don't want to say next time, because I'm not sure if it's going to be next week. I have to coordinate with my panel members here. But we are going to come back. That'll be the next one that we do. That will probably be a two-parter, because that's a full-length, full-color comic book with characters and whatnot. So we'll even be able to like select characters to voice and whatnot. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, there are links. There are links to Vishanti and Chesh. There are links to Bent's music. There are wish lists, Patreon, all that stuff. And real quick, I'll go over what's coming up on the channel, and then we'll get any further announcements from our panel members, and then we'll be out. So, on Tuesday, the 8th, will be Kent with Bent, I think, 96.
Yes.
So, which means in a couple months, we're probably going to hit our 100th episode.
Yeah.
Let's see. On the Thursday the 10th, there's going to be what can we really learn from fossils? Which I'm going to take a look at Dr. I believe his name is Timothy Clary from ICR, as he gave a similarly titled podcast, I guess. We're going to be taking a look at that. That was actually sent to me by a guy named Cameron, who runs it's called Paleo 101 YouTube channel. He's prominent on Twitter. He's a paleontology student. I don't know exactly though, but anyway, I linked to his channel in that video description because he sent that to me. On the 12th, we'll be doing something. It might just be the next Tract reading. So stay tuned. And that's as far ahead as I want to look. Vishanti, do you have any announcements for your channel or anything?
I updated my Amazon wish list. Other than that, I've been dealing with some real life stuff. So yet again, my channel is not fully launched yet. So what a shock.
All right, Chesh.
I have a show coming up. Tomorrow I'm going to be on the Free Thought Profit talking about the Atheist Alliance International losing their status as a nonprofit in Europe. They'd already lost it in America. They've now lost it in Europe, and
Ouch.
they're looking potentially at losing it and their UN status as well. So I'm looking at that over on Free Thought Profit's channel. On Tuesday, I'll be talking about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, because that Amber Heard finally filed her appeal, and then some people said some awful crap about Rihanna, so we get to look at that. And then on Friday is Dumbfuck Fridays, and I should have a debate hub set up for next week, but I'm not sure what day that's going to be yet. So, and Wednesday will be art or Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I might talk about these 8 solars that I'm now writing.
There you go. Ben?
Hey, listen, 8 rays of the sun, man.
Yeah.
Got anything, Ben?
Yep. Yeah, I'm just actively working on music, so what you hear today,
sorry. Depth's appeal, not Amber's appeal. My mistake.
you might hear something different if you check again tonight. So
There you go.
it's a lot of fun to record and mixing. It's starting to come together.
All right. Well, with that, guys, we are out of here. We're going to hit the end credits, and then I'll be gone. I'll see you guys, hopefully, on Tuesday. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Bent Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, McSpooks, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Atheist Animal. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if the annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.